It's not just a big game for Borough on Saturday against Newcastle because it happens to be a derby. It's a big game for Gareth Southgate and his team to try and get 3 points. They let themselves down very badly last week against Bolton Wanderers. Terrible start, paid the price. It was all over after 10 minutes. Might as well have all gone home. And it was a very, very frustrating afternoon for the players who were allowed to have the ball by Bolton, but rarely looked capable of getting back into the game. When they did, they then went and shot themselves in the foot. This time they've got to start off more concentrated, as Southgate says, got to be more determined, and really they're up against a Newcastle side that would be buoyant from the drawn game at Chelsea last week. So potentially it's a tougher game than Bolton, so attitudes are very important in this particular derby. What makes it worse is that Newcastle tend to have a very good record at the Riverside. Borough have only beaten them twice in the last 12 visits in the Premier League. That's a poor record and one which needs improving. To do that, Borough have got to play as they know they can. The 5-match unbeaten run before the Bolton game was based on teamwork, commitment, attitude, and an attitude really that they were determined that they weren't going to lose the game. And that's got to be the case against Newcastle because they'll have a similar attitude. I think it's potentially going to be a good game. There is a history of some awful derby games between the two sides in recent years. But I think in this particular case, certainly taking into account the fact that Southgate does try to put the emphasis more on attacking, we could see a good game, particularly if you're a Borough fan. I do think they'll approach it in the right way, see plenty of the ball hopefully. That will depend on how the midfield play. I think they learned a lesson against Bolton. They should definitely improve. And the great thing would be to see a goal from Afonso Alves. Apparently he's gone very well in training this week. So let's see the Brazilian go out and do it in the pitch. And overall, we need a team effort. We need 3 points from Borough because it is important in terms of the league position. Because, as we all know, everybody's bunched up dramatically this season. 2 defeats sends you dramatically soaring down the league. 2 wins sends you the other way. Borough need to get back on track with 3 points. We're about to see a Newcastle side which is probably a lot better than they were earlier in the season. They were entrenched in the bottom 3 and in most people's eyes were quite capable of going down. When Kevin Keegan left, he left the club in disarray, major problems to solve. And when Joe Kinnear initially arrived on Tyneside, there was a feeling that in no way could he possibly be the man for the job after so many years out of the game. That's probably proved not to be the case. They haven't been consistent, the Magpies, but results in general have improved to the extent that they had a very, very good home win against Aston Villa the other day. Aston Villa, of course, then went and won at Arsenal, albeit after Borough had won at Villa Park. So I think that sums up the state of the Premier League at the moment. But at the same time, Villa are one of the better sides, and for Borough and Newcastle both to beat them indicates what both sides are probably capable of in this derby. Newcastle got this terrific point at Chelsea, a battling defensive display by all accounts, and they did it without Stephen Taylor, who was out through injury. 1 or 2 new names really for Borough fans to get used to. A lot of foreigners dominating their back four. If in total tomorrow, a few new names, but by all accounts they're going very well, and it's going to be one of those games where Borough need to dominate in the way that they don't always do. We've been poor in midfield on occasions, but then brilliant on other occasions. I think that's partly due to the fact there's still a learning game going on in there. Gary O'Neill still getting used to the central position. Didier Degas learning as he goes along. I thought he struggled a lot against Bolton, but again he will learn from that. A great belief at Borough that Degas is going to be a top player in the future, and he's got to come through games like last week's to find out what the Premier League is all about. I hope he'll have taken a lot on board from that game and try and dominate a lot more against Newcastle. It's going to be an important part of the game, because if Borough can get control of the ball, I believe they can go on to win it. Gareth Southgate's obviously got a few decisions to make about his lineup. When a team loses 3-1 at home, you'd normally think there are going to be major changes the next week. Of course, the first point is that they don't have a big squad, still carrying 1 or 2 injuries, and he doesn't have a lot of options in that area. The other is, of course, that the team that played against Bolton was near enough his favoured starting 11 at the moment. So I can't see the manager looking really to make too many changes. Andrew Taylor was brought off in the second half after a particularly uninspiring performance. I think the lads had a good season. He did have 1 or 2 injuries last year which held him back. Obviously there's the much publicised spat with a supporter to take into account that he had when he came off against Bolton. I don't think we should read too much into that. I think that Southgate is one of Taylor's biggest fans, and he certainly will initially be pencilled into the lineup. I don't think there'll be much in the way of changes anywhere. Julio Arca's obviously knocking on the door. He could come in at left back. Again, he could come into the middle. I think probably the fact that he hasn't had that much playing experience this season will probably count against him. Probably the biggest decision is going to come up front. We know that Alves hasn't been doing the business, but we know that Borough believe he's quite capable of doing that. Very short of confidence at the moment, the Brazilian. And now he's got a threat from Mido, who's fit again following a hamstring injury. Mido, of course, is the team's top scorer this season with 5 goals. He's done really well, but often as an impact sub. Great attitude when he's come off the bench, and I suspect that Southgate will look at that fact and probably think that this is the best way to go around about it. Put Medio on the bench from the start, give Alves the chance to redeem himself, and let's see what's happened. We do need a good start from Borough. An early Alves goal would be terrific. It would set the scene, hopefully for the team going on to take the 3 points, as I say. And if Meado can come off the bench and get a 6th goal of the season to add to that, all the better. Let's hope for a Borough win.